Hello.
Oh, hello. Lovely to see you. I love a guest who's on time. Not only that,
Woohoo.
but early. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Oh, this is wonderful. I'm Hilary, by the way, from TVNZ in Auckland, New Zealand.
Brilliant.
And I'm doing this interview. It's 9 o'clock in the morning here. I'm doing this interview from home, and then we're going to repackage it, make it look a lot better. Our end. You look
Okay.
fabulous, but we'll
Yeah.
repackage it and do it. In case you see me going mute, I've got a building site. The neighbours are building next door, so I might just put myself on mute while you're talking. But I hope it
Okay.
won't. I won't be too slow on the button with my next question. I'll just move this along here. Okay. How's everything where you are?
Very good. Thank you. Yeah. COVID is on its way down. I'm actually about to try and go to Canada to visit my daughter who's out there.
Oh,
And
no.
yeah, that assumes, you have to make sure you've got all the negative tests and things like that. So
Yes.
I'm wearing masks everywhere. But yeah, it'd be nice.
I dare say it's a long time since you've seen her, is it?
Yes, it's good 6 months.
Oh,
So she's actually working out in Whistler in ski resort. She's got a job as a lawyer back in London, but decided to take a year off before she got into the grind
oh,
of
fabulous. Oh, well, that's a wonderful thing to do. Oh, you'll have a wonderful
absolutely.
time. Right. Here we go. I am recording. I'm all set. I'll get into trouble with my boss if I'm not doing everything right. Okay, here we go. And Dr. Michael Mosley is with us now. It is lovely to talk to you. Now, you're going to tell us that eating fat isn't all bad news. How can that be?
Absolutely. It obviously depends what type of fat you're eating, but there's a lot of evidence now. There are kind of good fats and bad fats, and particularly things like the oily fish and full fat yogurt and full fat milk. All of those I'm a big fan of. So yeah, and nuts also, lots of lovely fat in those.
What do good fats do? Why are good fats good for us?
Sure. So good fats are very satiating and they also carry lots of fat soluble vitamins in them. Some sorts of fats are particularly spectacularly good for you, like olive oil, extra virgin olive oil. It contains anti inflammatory agents. It's a key part of the Mediterranean diet, which is widely regarded as the healthiest diet on the planet. And it just makes food taste good. I splash olive oil on everything. My wife Claire, who does all the recipes for our books and who's a GP, she just loves olive oil. We get through gallons of the stuff.
This is good to hear. Now, I have a copy of your new book, and I've been reading it. I'll tell you more about that later. Um, but I want to pick up on one thing that you mentioned, and that is low fat substitutes, because a lot of us will go to the supermarket and we'll see, oh, there's a low fat yogurt. I should be buying that. Or there's, a low fat spread instead of butter. Why shouldn't we be buying those sorts of things?
Well, two reasons. One is when they take the fat out, it generally tastes ghastly. So what they have to do is they have to stuff it with something else. So they used to and still do to some extent stuff it with sugar or artificial sugars or something else, which tastes it makes it taste okay. And the other is that in the by doing that, they're generating what's called an ultra processed food. So they're taking a lovely thing like milk or yogurt and they're turning it into this sort of Frankenstein food, which has a bit of this, a bit of that. And when you read the side of the package, it contains all sorts of ingredients you would never find in your kitchen, and which are just produced in huge factories. And one of the things I point out in the book is that we can blame the rise of obesity in New Zealand and the rest of the world over the last 40 years or so on the rise of ultra processed food. We're eating more and more food which we do not cook ourselves, but which are produced in giant factories for us.
What do you think are the worst processed foods we're currently eating?
I think that it is probably uh, largely it's the sort of frozen dinners and things like that you get. Obviously, there are lots and lots of yogurts, as you say, which are kind of stuffed with artificial sugars and other strange things. You just have to kind of go down the aisles of supermarkets, and if it's a sort of brightly coloured package with lots of advertising on it and lots of ingredients, you can be pretty sure it's not good for you. I uh, one of my rules is I try not to eat anything I can buy in a petrol station because that normally has all sorts of things in it to preserve, the shelf life. There are all sorts of strange pies. I was recently in Australia in the outback, and I got to eat my first cheese sausage, which I have to say was actually quite tasty. But
I'll
when I
bet.
looked at the ingredients, it was not good. I was doing a kind of crazy experiment where I put myself on an ultra processed food diet, and as part of that, I ate far too many cheese sausages. I'm not sure in New Zealand whether those are also popular, but it's essentially the stuff which, as I said, try not to buy any food you can get in the sort of, the long shelf life section of the petrol station.
Yes, the notorious thing that you can buy from petrol stations here is something called a lasagna topper, which is a slice of lasagna, you know, highly processed, which is then breadcrumbed and deep fried. So stay clear of those, everybody. You heard it from Michael today.
Absolutely. I'm hoping to make my way to New Zealand in May, depending obviously on COVID. So I should look out for that.
We look forward to seeing you. Now, back to the book. So my boss said to me last week, you're going to be interviewing Michael Mosley. Here's his new book. Hop to it, do some research. Well, I thought the best kind of research was to actually do it. Can I just say, 800 calories a day actually is bloody hard. I didn't, I'm a person who has a bit of willpower, but I
Yep.
genuinely found it quite hard. Why is 800 calories so important to Kickstarters?
Sure. I mean, you can do 800 to 1,000 calories. Most of the recipes in there add up across the day to about 900. The reason is there's been such a large number of clinical studies of research looking at rapid weight loss diets. And in the old days, it was less than that. So you should feel lucky that it used to be down at 500. And indeed,
No.
oh, 100%. Yeah. And when I originally invented the 5-2 diet, which I'm kind of best known for, where you had to go on restricted calories for 2 days a week. At that point, because it was based mainly on rat work, it was about 500 or 600 calories. I've upped it generously to around 900 calories because that's where the science shows. And the reason is, as well, if you combine it with keto, and the recipes are keto, then that helps to suppress hunger. I don't know how long you stuck it for or how you felt, but most people, after about 4 or 5 days, they start to adapt and they start to feel better about it.
I'm still doing it actually. It's been a week, and we're not going to include this in the interview because it's sharing too much information with our viewers. But I've lost nearly 2 kilos, and it was kind of look. As we all do over the summer, I ate too much and drank too much, and I thought, well, this is good research and it's good for me.
Yep.
So no. I genuinely I paid my subscription. I've joined up. I will stick to it. And I do feel
Brilliant.
good. I do feel good, even though I gave you a hard time about the 800 calories. Let's just go back to, you mentioned keto, and for a lot of people who watch our show, they won't know what keto is. What is keto?
Sure. So keto basically means that you've gone into a state of ketoacidosis. So winding back a bit, you are a bit like a hybrid car, and so am I. We run on two fuel systems, sugar and fat. Most of the time we run on sugar because that's the stuff your body can easily access. It's only when the sugar supply goes down do you switch into fat burning in a major way. So what happens on a keto diet is you are eating very little in the way of carbs. So your sugar stores start to go down and your body starts to burn fat. And it does this by producing these things called keto bodies, which it then uses as fuel. And the ketone diet, or keto diet, has been around for just over 100 years. Originally invented in 1921 to treat children with epilepsy. And since then, we've discovered an awful lot of other benefits, including the fact that it suppresses the hunger hormone ghrelin. So you don't get as hungry when you're losing weight and when you're on a diet, though you have to go into a state of ketosis before that happens. So I don't know if you had any of these urine sticks to wee on, but they will tell you when you're in ketosis, or your partner will tell you. My wife can tell because I start to produce this sort of slightly sweet smell, which she says, a bit like nail polish. But these are more reliable. You can get them online or at a chemist. They're called keto sticks. You wee on them, they change color when you're in ketosis. But you'll also just feel it because you feel much more energy, you stop feeling hungry, and your brain seems to be kind of running at 150%. So these are all good things.
Why has it only become a buzzword now? Is it that they've only just been doing, you say the diet, the keto movement has been around for 100 years. Why only now is it becoming such a focus?
Well, a couple of things. One is the science has moved on, but frankly, largely it was to do with one of the Kardashians who put herself on a keto diet back in 2018. And then suddenly keto went from, I looked at it on Google Trends, it went from flatline to whoa, like that. And has been sort of pretty much taking off ever since. So, yeah, it wasn't anything to do with the science or the scientists saying stuff. It was one of the Kardashians, I can't remember which. But she kind of kicked it off, and then lots of people tried it. And I'm not, because it hasn't been tested as a weight loss thing for a very long time. I'm not sure that you can rely on it as a long-term solution, and people get very bored with it. They crave the carbs, which is why in the Fast 800 Keto it's a short-term thing. In some ways, I say it's a bit like playing golf. You use different clubs for different purposes. So you drive off, the driver to get, hey, we're off, and then you use the iron, and then you use the putter. So that's kind of what the Fast 800 Keto approach is. It's a sort of three-stage process. You hit it hard with the 800 Keto, and then you kind of ease into intermittent fasting, and then you move towards what I would describe the way of life, a healthy Mediterranean style diet, which has still got plenty of healthy fats in it, but it's also got healthy carbs in it. And I think that's probably the best way to go in the long term. But
Yes.
a keto is very effective for short term, and that's why I'm saying do that for up to 3 months, but probably not a lot longer than that.
What about exercise? How important
Sure.
is exercise versus how many calories we're putting in our mouths?
Okay, for losing weight, exercise is terrible. Unfortunately, it's very, very ineffective because in order to burn off a kilo, you'd have to run something like 80 kilometers. And there are, in a muffin, there are 600 calories, and you would have to walk for about 10 hours to burn that off. So you just don't burn many calories. And very recently, as I explained in the book, we've discovered that even the calories you think you're burning, you're not. Because what your body does is it takes back those calories across the rest of the day. Around half the calories that you think you've burnt off in exercise, your body will just slow everything down because your body likes to hold on to those calories. So exercise is brilliant for all sorts of things. Great for the brain, great for mood, great for your sex drive, whatever it might be, but not a great way of losing weight. But what I do recommend is that you maintain your current exercise regime and then kind of slowly add to it. And both in the book and also I have a website, thefast800.com, where you can find more information on exercise and what to do.
It's a good lesson for us all to learn, really, isn't it? That if we do some exercise, we shouldn't ought to be rewarding ourselves with food. Because I think a lot of us do. It's a natural thing. We think, oh, I've been great. I went for a 45-minute walk today. I will have that croissant for breakfast.
Yeah, and sadly, it doesn't work like that, and that's why exercise in most clinical trials anyway, rarely leads to weight loss. And the other thing is that people do what is called compensatory relaxing. So they beam down to the gym and they then sit on their bottoms for the next 10 hours because they think, I've been on the treadmill, I've done my bit, I'm just going to sit and watch telly and eat chips from now on.
What about willpower? Because, some people will argue that they just don't have the willpower not to reach for that bag of chips or, the cheese sausage, whatever it might be.
I think that a lot of it is about the planning. I think in the initial stage, what you need to do is make sure all the junk is out the house. Because if there is chocolate or biscuits in the house, I will seek them out and I will eat them. My wife Claire does not have a sweet tooth, but I am roaming around the house at 11 o'clock at night, optimistically looking for that chocolate bar she has hidden somewhere, which I'm absolutely sure she has hidden, but she will never tell me. And so it gives me a bit of exercise. So yeah, you've got to get the stuff out because otherwise, you will crack. But you need to kind of know your goals. That's another thing I strongly recommend is you write down the reasons you want to do the diet and stick those on the fridge or stick those on the cupboard and have those in mind when you are feeling tempted, and also ride the wave of desire. So that crazy craving for pizza, breathe in and out a few times, drink lots of water, run around the house, do some squats, press ups, and I promise you it will pass. And again, one of the advantages of a rapid weight loss diet, particularly a keto based one, is a lot of the crazy cravings depart within a surprisingly short period of time. Again, by the time you hit ketosis, a lot of those absolutely mad, insane, bonkers cravings you have for chocolate croissants and things like that will go.
You raise an interesting thing about rapid weight loss, because the old-fashioned thinking was that you should lose weight very slowly over a long period of time, and you're more likely to keep it off.
Yes.
That's now been debunked, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely, by a large number of clinical trials, which have been done in New Zealand, in Australia, in the UK and the US. And what they do is they randomly allocate people to either following a rapid weight loss diet or slow and steady, and the rapid wins out pretty much every time. Slow and steady does not win the race, mainly because people get bored. They give up in very high amounts. And rapid weight loss is very rewarding. And what you then need to do is obviously make sure that you don't put it on. You've got to be accountable. But even in the clinical trials, what they find is people do put on a bit more weight, but the people who have lost it rapidly, they keep on most. The best predictor of how well you'll do in the diet is how much you lose in the first 4 weeks of the diet.
Right.
And then beyond that, it's really about remaining accountable. So do it with your spouse, do it with your friends, do it with an online course, do it with someone who's going to nag you when you start to, slip off. The other thing I recommend is a tight belt, so you kind of know when it's beginning to strain a bit. The other thing is, standing on the scales. If your problem is your blood pressure, you'll find your blood pressure comes down very rapidly. So keep on checking your blood pressure. I've got a home kit. If the problem is your blood sugars, and the reason I lost weight in the first place is because I discovered 10 years ago that I had type 2 diabetes, and I lost around 10 kilos and have kept it off ever since. And so my blood sugars have stayed down, but I kind of, check them every so often just to see if they're still in good shape. So you need some sort of accountability. And it could be, as I said, your trousers, it could be a tape measure around the tummy button, and it can be your friends, neighbors, whatever, loved ones, anyone who's going to keep you on track.
You've got a podcast called Just One Thing, and just finally, focusing on that one thing, of course, that'll make you a little bit healthier. What's the one thing we can all do today to make ourselves a little bit healthier?
Sure. I mean, one of the things I think is super healthy is to go out for an early morning walk. Basically, get out there, get a bit of sunshine, brisk walk. You got to walk briskly. You need to be walking at least 100 paces a minute, ideally. And if you're doing it by yourself, put on some music with, Black Eyed Peas, something which is going to kind of drive you along. And even a 20-minute walk first thing in the morning will set you up. Do it before breakfast. You'll burn a bit more fat. It'll set you up for the day. You don't have to go for long runs or anything like that. A walk is a perfectly good way of beginning the day. And because you're getting that early morning light, then that's going to reset your internal clock, which will improve your sleep. And ideally, if you're doing it in green space, in a wood, in a tree, by the river, whatever it might be, you also get the bonus of spending time in nature. So that's one thing I try to do, every day if I can. And I do it with the dog. And having a dog is also a good thing because, they are loyal friends.
Wonderful. It's so lovely to talk to you this morning, and thank you so much for making yourself available at this morning, and fingers crossed that you can make it here in May too.
Absolutely, and keep in contact. Let me know how you get on.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying it. I really am. And if the results continue the way they are, hurrah, I'll put my clothes again. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Try then.
Love you, Dave. Bye-bye.